Sahil Bloom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's a real honor to have you on. And your book, The Five Types of Wealth, is one of those books that came to me at the perfect time, right when I needed to hear it. So I feel like this book that you've just written is kind of like the vibe of the millennial generation right now.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad it hits you at the right time. It is one of those it's one of those funny things. Like, you don't know when you start writing something that you can kind of capture this like zeitgeist market fit or something like that, or product zeitgeist fit, if you will. That's been pretty cool to see people take it and run with it.
Yeah, because in the book you give advice for every stage of life, every season of life, as you call it. But it really, I mean, as a millennial, like I'm right smack dab in the middle of the millennial generation. I feel like you were just speaking directly to me. Um, so yeah, before we get into the five types of wealth, I would love to just get your backstory and what compelled you to write this book.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful to know a little bit just on like my own origin story, and the most important part of that is I sort of feel like this desire to reject default or reject common convention is a little bit like hardwired into my DNA. I come from a mixed race background. I'm sort of an unlikely collision of two worlds. My mom was born and raised in Bangalore, India. My dad in the Bronx, New York. My mom applied in secret to come to college against her parents' wishes. You know, she kind of had her whole life mapped out for her. Like, she was going to have an arranged marriage. She was going to settle down for this life in India. Applied in secret to come to school in the U.S. My parents ended up crossing paths over the course of 2 weeks in a Princeton University library. My dad similarly had this like whole life set out for him by a domineering father. And for whatever reason, they crossed paths. And my mom asked my dad out on a date. And as the story goes, my dad on the first date said to my mom, "My father will never accept us." And my mom was so blinded by his use of the word us that she completely missed the message. And unfortunately, he was right. His father was not accepting of this budding courtship and forced my dad to choose between my mom and his family. And my dad walked out the door and never saw his family again. And to this day, I never met either of my dad's parents. He has three siblings I've never met. I have first cousins out there in the world that I've never met, all because of this one decision to reject this default path that was handed to them and to choose to live by their own design. It took my dad 28 years to get to that point. And I think he beat me by about two, because in my own journey, it really was the first 30 years of my life that were governed by this obsessive quest with following the traditional path to a successful life. I did the things that I was supposed to want to do, the things that the world tells you should do if you want to be successful. I took the job that sounded the most impressive, maybe not the job I wanted, but the one that was going to get me the pats on the back. I chased whatever goals you're handed by the world, the things that you're told will lead to that contentment or fulfillment or happiness, namely making money, getting promotions, bonuses, etc. And I did it all with this like deeply ingrained surety that one day I was just going to wake up and feel good about myself. That like I'd get to the thing, whatever it was, and I'd wake up and be like, I've arrived, right? Like that sensation, it's just there. And unfortunately, all along that way, while I was getting those things and winning in this one area, every other area of my life started to suffer. My relationships, I was living far away from the people that I loved most. My wife and I were struggling to conceive at the time, which was creating real strain in our life. I was drinking 6, 7 nights a week. My mental and physical health were in disarray. All these other areas of my life were really suffering, while on the surface, I was, quote unquote, winning the game. And at the end of 2020, it just came to the point where I realized that if that was what winning felt like, I had to be playing the wrong game.
Well, it sounds like this rejecting the path laid out for you is in your DNA. You know, you told me your parents' story is they had this destiny that was laid out for them, and they both turned away from that for love. And I think a big trend with the millennials is that we were hammered in from day one that your career is everything. That is the path to independence. You got to go to college, and then that leads to a career. And I think a lot of us are at a transition point right now where we're realizing that the career is not the most fulfilling thing. And that's why your book comes in at the perfect time, because there really are many other ways to measure wealth, but we don't know how to measure them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I think the most salient point that I'm trying to make is that what you measure in life really matters. The things that you measure end up dictating all of your actions. We don't often think about that. The fact that the things that we measure are really the things that are pulling the strings, if you will, on the actions that we take. You don't really need to look that far to find examples either. Like if anyone that's listening, or if you've ever put on one of those like sleep tracking rings or bands, all of a sudden you become the most annoying sleep person in the world, right? You're like, oh, I can't go out, I can't do this, I can't have a drink, I can't, I know I can't meet you, my sleep score, right? All your actions suddenly surround the one thing that you can measure. And historically, as a society, what is the one thing that we use to measure our entire worth, our self-worth as human beings? It's been money. And so as a result, not coincidentally, all of our actions have tried to go and build in that one domain that we can clearly measure. And what I am here to say, and the point that I'm trying to get across, is money is a part of building a good life, no doubt. I'm not telling you that money doesn't buy happiness. It's just not true scientifically. Money really does help. But it's not the only part of a good life. There are all of these other things out there that we intrinsically know really matter, but we've never had a way to articulate them. We've never had a framework to put all of this into a bigger picture so that we can build towards all of it rather than just the one thing.
Yeah, it's hard to flex how good your eye contact is, or how deep your hugs are, or
Yeah, it's hard to flex on
yeah.
like relationship quality, right? Like, oh, I can't walk into a room and, stack myself up according to others on the basis of the strength of my relationship with my kids. And so part of all of this is to recognize that, social status and the signaling that comes with a lot of, more traditional wealth mechanisms like money, they're pretty fleeting in terms of the actual satisfaction that they bring. Like anyone that thinks that they can buy their way to happiness via status signaling, like, oh, I'm going to get a nicer car, I'm going to get the house or the yacht, there's always going to be a bigger boat. There's always going to be someone that you're going to compare yourself to where it's not going to be a favorable comparison. And you're just going to be reset back to that feeling of dread, like you need to do more, right? We grew up on this, the millennial generation, like the keeping up with the Joneses phenomenon is very real. Like you can scientifically track the fact that people who are above average in a poorer community are actually happier than people who are below average in a wealthier community. Even if on an absolute basis, those second people are doing much better, the where you stack up against others is so impactful on how you feel like you're doing.
That's a great point. I definitely feel that, being an online video creator, the amount of views that I'm getting right now, sometimes it's quite disappointing. But if I were to go back 4 years, the amount of views that I'm getting right now would be incredible. But you're kind of as good as your last video. So, if you get a million views, but the last one got 1.5 million, you're like, ugh. But, you got to remind yourself when you started, a million would have been beyond my wildest dreams. So yeah, I think our brains are just kind of built to do comparison. It's like natural human nature. And I love what you've done here with you've broken it down, the 5 types of wealth, into time, social, mental, physical, and financial. And I would love to just run through how we can kind of improve in each of these areas. And maybe if we could start with like, what's the top priority? What's the one that you can't really have the others without this one first?
Well, I really think it all starts with time. Time wealth is the idea that time is your most precious asset, the one thing that you can't get back. Time wealth is all about the freedom to choose how you spend your time, who you spend it with, where you spend it, when you trade it for other things. But it is grounded in that awareness of the value of your time, that it is that one thing that you can't get more of, that you can't get back. The question I love asking people, especially young people, is would you trade lives with Warren Buffett? He's worth $130 billion. He has access to absolutely anyone in the world. He reads and learns for a living. He flies around on a Boeing business jet. He can basically stay wherever and do whatever he wants. But you wouldn't trade lives with him for one specific reason. He is 95 years old. There's no way you would agree to trade the amount of time that you have left for all of that money. And on the flip side, he would give absolutely anything to be in your shoes, to have the amount of time that you have left. He would give up every single dollar. So with a very simple question, you have highlighted the fact that your time has quite literally incalculable value. And yet, on a daily basis, how much of that time are we really wasting? How much of that time are we spending scrolling on these things, comparing ourselves to other people, worrying about the past, stress about the future, doing all of these things that fundamentally disregard that one most precious asset that we really have?
That's really well said. And I think everybody's heard by now how these phones and the social media is hurting our other aspects of life. I just did a video with Dr. Anna Lemke, who was also at Stanford with you. And she wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. And there was a beautiful chapter in there about the sacrifices of addictions and how the biggest thing that you sacrifice is relationships with others. And every time that I'm on my phone, I can feel that I'm not connecting with others. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. And I think everybody's aware of how our time is being taken from us, but we're not really conscious when it's shown to us in our screen time. It's like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to happen. But 95% of the time we're operating in our subconscious. So that's when we're taken advantage of.
This is a very important point that you're making, which is I have this belief that not all awareness is created equal. Like awareness in the abstract to say, oh yeah, I know that, is not really impactful or important. You need awareness at the testing point. You need awareness when you're actually tested on the thing so that you can act on it, right? Life is all about awareness and then action. You need to be aware of something, then you need to act on that awareness. If you're not aware of it at the testing point, then you can't act on it in that testing point, which is the thing that really matters. And so people say like, oh yeah, I know time is my most precious asset. And then they're with their kid and their kid wants to play with them and they're sitting there on their phone scrolling on some nonsense on TikTok, right? Like you weren't aware enough in the moment to go and act on it. And so a part of this is to just hammer in your head enough, create enough triggers around you to catch yourself a couple of times a day. It's not these dramatic shifts. Like we have this belief that these changes in our lives need to be dramatic. All of a sudden, I need to have this completely transformed view of my time. Not really. All it is to catch yourself in that one moment when your kid wants to play to you and say like, oh, this is what I was hearing. This is what I was listening to. This is what I read. I'm going to just put my phone down. And in that one moment, it doesn't feel transformative, but the impact of that, the ripple effect is enormous. So really all of this is just about bringing that awareness to the front of your mind so that you can really go and act on it when you're truly being tested.
That's really well said. And you remind me of something that I'm kind of looking into right now. I'm planning a possible video about how casinos design their floor plans. And there's a lot of psychology involved in this. And every path in the casino floor is kind of curved. You'll never find a right angle turn in a casino, because if you hit like a intersection that has like a sharp point, you have to make a decision, and you might make the decision to leave the casino. So they kind of want to lull you into this numb state where you're just on autopilot walking down the path, and you never have to make a decision about which direction to go. And it's the same, the people that develop social media use those same principles where you're scrolling and you never have a point where you're like, you know what, I should get off this. It's just this endless path that kind of curves, it gets you from outrage to happiness to, oh, that's cute. Oh, that's funny. But it never jolts you into being like, I need to get off this. Yeah.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. So how can we reclaim our time?
I think that the first thing that I recommend everyone do is develop a perspective on what activities in your life and what people in your life are creating energy versus draining energy. The reason that I say this is because your outcomes in life follow your energy. It's not about where you are sort of deploying time per se. It's much more about what is creating versus draining energy. When you are deploying your time into things that are energy creating, you are going to get the best outcomes. That is going to lead to the things that create step function improvements in your life. The highest leverage activities are going to be the ones that are energy creating. The vast majority of people have never spent any time thinking about what creates versus drains energy in their life. And the simple way to do this is to just take your calendar, pop your calendar up on your screen at the end of a given weekday. Look at the activities from the day and color code them. Green means it created energy. You felt lifted up, you felt pulled towards the thing during or after it. Yellow means it was neutral, and red means you felt drained physically during or after the activity. Do that for a week, and then zoom out and look at your calendar. And you will have a very clear visual perspective on the types of activities that create energy versus drain energy in your life. It'll be sort of the mix of green to red. That gives you a really helpful piece of information and insight into what you need to be amplifying versus sort of delegating or deleting over the long term. You're never going to get to a world where there's no red on your calendar, kind of a pipe dream. But if you improve that ratio of green to red, the ratio of energy creating to energy draining, your life and your outcomes will improve. You will feel more time wealthy because you'll be deploying your precious energy into the few things that really create the biggest, highest leverage outcomes. And that will unlock new time that you can then deploy into other things. You won't be just spinning your wheels on the busyness that doesn't really seem to be pushing you forward in the direction that you're trying to go.
That's great advice. You made me think of habits too. Like it's very valuable to zoom out and look at this map from a bird's eye view and see, oh wow, it smacks you in the face. Look at all this red. But then when you're actually living in the moment, I think it's our habits that really dictate what we're going to do over that next hour. Can you win these little moments? I love the book Atomic Habits, and I noticed you mentioned it in your book. Do you have any advice for kind of developing habits that lead to more green?
I really think that all of this comes down to making the choice that is the tiniest action that would create forward progress. Probably the most common question I ever get from readers or, of my book or of my newsletter is, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling anxious, there's this big project, big opportunity, whatever it is in front of me. I have no idea where to start. What do I do? I'm feeling paralyzed. And my answer is always basically a simple question, which is, what is the simplest action that you can do today that would create forward progress? And that I have found to be the most empowering idea. It's like, what is the one tiny thing that I can do right now that will leave me tomorrow slightly better off than today? Because I don't need to worry about slaying the whole dragon or getting to the other side of this big, crazy mountain or wall right now. All I need to worry about is the one tiny thing that I can do. If you consistently ask and then execute on the answer to that question, your life will improve. It doesn't need to be that you have this grand vision for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Frankly, I sometimes think there's like a planning fallacy where that actually makes your life worse when you try to plan so much. You get stressed about being off plan. Just thinking about today, what can I do right now to leave me a little better off, is a great way to just build those micro habits that improve. The second thing that I'll say here when it comes to habits is a system that I've developed that has really helped me, which is for any area of my life that I'm trying to make progress on, I will set an A goal, a B goal, and a C goal for what I'm going to do on a given day around that thing. So the example would be, an A goal is like your best case scenario, a B goal is sort of the baseline, and then a C goal is like your downside, just minimum viable thing. So if I'm trying to get in better shape, my A goal might be to go to the gym for an hour. My B goal might be 30 minutes workout at home, and my C goal might just be a 15-minute walk. And so what I'd say is, okay, given day comes along. I feel great. I slept great. All my routines are in order. I'm going to go to the gym for an hour. I'm going to hit my A goal. Maybe on a normal day, sort of average, I'm just going to do my 30-minute workout at home. That's my B goal. And then if all hell breaks loose, if there's like some sort of fire at work, if my kid kept me up all night, whatever happens, I'm just going to be able to hit my seagull. I'm just going to do that little thing, the 15-minute walk. Because the reality here is that anything above zero compounds positively in your life. Anything above zero compounds. It doesn't have to be optimal for it to be beneficial. So do the tiny thing, and you're significantly, infinitely, in fact, better off than if you did nothing.
That's great advice. Yeah, I think just even the smallest step in the right direction can drastically change anything for the better. When I'm giving people fitness advice, which I'm not qualified to do, but I sometimes do. Um, if somebody's really out of shape, I'm not going to give them some sort of advice or training curriculum that's going to make them incredibly sore for the next week. I would never do that. I would probably just have them do something that's almost laughable. Like,
Yeah.
can you just like walk across the room? Or can you do one push up or one dip? And they'll almost laugh at it, be like, one, really? And that's going to make them want to do like more than one. But it's just that slight, you make the barrier to entry as easy as possible.
Yeah.
You take down that barrier and then you're entered. Once you're entered, you might as well do the workout or do the good thing. But
There
I
was
think
this
those, yeah,
workout. There was this workout that I loved back in the day that I did called PLP, push-ups, pull-ups, or sorry, push-ups, lunges, pull-ups. And the idea and the construct was day one, you do 10 of each. And there was an option. You either start at 1 of each or you start at 10 of each. I started at 10 of each. So it feels like that. Very simple, very easy. Like, oh, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, 10 lunges per leg, and 10 pull-ups. It's like, it takes 2 minutes, whatever it's going to take. The second day you do 11 of each. The next day you do 12 of each. The next day you do 13 of each, all the way up to 69. So it's 60 days, 2 straight months of just adding 1 per day. It's an amazing program because you actually, by the end of it, end up having a crazy training effect because you're building up this volume over a period of time. Your strength goes through the roof. Your ability to do these body weight exercises goes through the roof. And it's a really cool format because at the outset, zero intimidation to get started on this thing and to just start moving. I've since now given it to different people to use different exercises. So if you can't do pull-ups, maybe you end up doing push-ups, squats, and lunges or something like that. Things anyone can do to great effect. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like if you can create these mechanisms for making things not feel intimidating at the start. The other one that I love using with people is what I call my 30 for 30 approach, which is to do something for 30 minutes a day for 30 straight days. So if you're trying to write a book, don't worry about writing a book. Just write for 30 minutes a day for 30 straight days. You can sit down for 30 minutes, even if you're just staring at the page. Force yourself to go and sit down and do that thing. 900 minutes of accumulated effort over that 30 days. I defy you to not make extraordinary progress on anything in 900 minutes if you really are dedicated to it. But any given day, 30 minutes feels like a manageable thing that you can do.
that's really good advice. And I've also been looking into like neuroplasticity a lot. And it's the same thing. It's like the workout analogy is so good, but you can apply that to music or writing or any skill that you want to learn. You just start with a very small incremental and then you do it 30 minutes a day or however long per day, but consistency. And that builds those grooves in your mind. And soon it becomes a habit or a behavior pattern and you can just do it on autopilot. But the beginning is nearly impossible. It feels impossible, but it does get easier.
100%.
So, okay, so we've covered time. We almost covered physical, but what's number 2?
Social wealth is the second one. And this is all about relationships. It's about those few close, deep bonds, your depth of close connections, and then the broader circles of connectivity to things that extend beyond yourself. Your looser connections to friends, to communities, spiritual, local, regional, national, etc. This is all about a recognition that relationships are the single greatest predictor of living a happy, healthy life. We now know this scientifically. The Harvard study of adult development is this amazing study done over the course of 85 years. They followed the lives of 1,300 original participants and about 700 of their descendants. They found that the single greatest predictor of physical health at age 80 was relationship satisfaction at age 50. It wasn't blood pressure. It wasn't smoking or drinking habits. It wasn't cholesterol levels. It was how you felt about your relationships that determined how well you aged. And yet, for most of us, what's the first thing that falls by the wayside when we get busy in life? It's the relationships. We don't think to call our mom. We don't think to text the friend. We don't get the old group of buddies together for the annual trip. They're the first thing we drop the ball on, when in fact, they should be the thing that we are really prioritizing if we're trying to build that good, happy, healthy life.
I'm so glad you brought up that study by Robert Waldinger from Harvard. And I did a whole video on that one, an animation. I know Robert. That's an amazing study. And I liked how in the beginning of the TED Talk, he says, raise your hand, if you want to be famous or an influencer or rich. And he finds that over 70% of Gen Z and millennials at the time, they wanted to be rich and famous. And he basically shows that these things that we've been conditioned to want don't actually lead to a happy, healthy, long life. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm in my mid 30s now, and it's kind of hard to make friends in your 30s. We have like a friend deficit. I actually heard that a lot of men getting married couldn't figure out groomsmen or a best man, which is kind of depressing. When we're younger, we spend all our time with our friends. You had that graph in your book that shows how much time we spend with our friends. And so, yeah, do you have advice for making friends and having a good social life as you get older?
This is one of those funny things because nobody teaches you how to make friends as an adult. Like when you think about how most of your friendships are formed, generally speaking, friendships have been a byproduct of these sort of sticky institutions, right? Like you were in school, so you were in this pocket where you were there. There were a bunch of people there, and there were all these collisions, and that led to friendships. And then you went to college, and that happened. And maybe you got your first job, and sort of that happened. Now think about the world where we are today. A lot of things have become decentralized. A lot of people are working remotely. Religion is not as big of a thing, so the friendships that would have come from being in a community in that way might not be occurring. People are getting married later; they're having kids later, so a lot of the friend groups there haven't really formed yet. So we sort of lack these sticky institutions where a lot of those relationships would be formed. The antidote to that, if you were to sort of reverse engineer, well, okay, knowing that, how do I make friends as an adult, is what I talk about as placing yourself into value-aligned rooms. What I mean by that is think about what are some of the core values that you really hold close in your own life. Maybe it's health and wellness. Maybe that's one of the things, like living a healthy, vibrant life is one of those things. You're probably going to want to find places or institutions that self-select for people like that hold those same values, because those are high likelihood friend candidates, if you will, people that you're probably going to get along with. For someone that's interested in health and wellness, that holds that as a value, delayed gratification, health, gyms are a great place to meet friends as adults. A lot of people, a lot of my best friends as adults actually have been through gyms and through running community, places where I know that I'm going to find people that are sort of into similar things as I am. Local communities, if you're into art, creativity, reading clubs, writing clubs, local art gallery things that are happening. There's always stuff happening, but you need to go and seek it out as an adult because you're not naturally forced into these sticky institutions.
Yeah, and I think that's why we talked about time first, because so many of us feel like we don't have the time to do that. We want friends, but we're like, that's a lot of effort, to go to these activities, to go to these sticky institutions. That takes time and effort and energy, and I feel like I'm always busy. So I think that's great advice.
You ask a lot of people what they're doing, and they're like, "Oh, I'm busy," and then you go look at their schedule, and they're like, sitting around watching Netflix 2 hours a day. And so part of it also is, this like question to ask ourselves and look in the mirror a little bit to say, we make time and we create energy for the things that we really care about in life. Oftentimes when I have pointed to time as being the inhibitor around something, it was really my desire. I didn't want the thing enough to go and prioritize it. You actually go and create that time for the things that you really want. The example that I use is like, a lot of people will tell you that they can't wake up early. Like, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm not a morning person, whatever. But if you gave them a 6 a.m. flight to go on a vacation, they would wake up and go and make that flight because they have an incentive. They actually have a desire to go and do that. So it's not that they can't, it's that the desire to wake up early for whatever benefit is there does not outweigh the pain of going and doing that. If it did, they would do the thing. And so part of this is like rewiring yourself a little bit around your programming to recognize if that's a thing that I really want, if I really want to go and build some meaningful adult relationships, that is going to require some level of pain, some level of delayed gratification to do the hard thing now that maybe is going to put me in that position. I'm not going to make any friends sitting around watching Netflix at my house. It's just not going to happen. And so I need to be able to override that short-term desire with the long-term desire of what I'm trying to go and create.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think maybe 30 years ago, being at home was slightly boring. You know, we didn't have a lot going on at our house. So of course we're going to go out and we're going to go to parties and social events. But now it's like our house is like the amusement park or the casino. And it's very hard to leave the casino.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the example, right? No right angles. It's like your phone, you know, go to Apple, go to Instagram, go to any of these companies. They have teams of PhD behavioral scientists whose entire jobs are to try to make these things as addictive as possible. Whose jobs are to make sure that you are like getting highly entertained constantly by the things that are there. Dopamine hits, making you feel short-term pleasure. And so I completely agree with you. Like, you are having to override this natural desire. It's like the ice cream, or it's the modern day equivalent of the marshmallow test, right? Like they placed these marshmallows in front of kids, and they left the room and they said, don't eat those marshmallows. You'll get much more if you wait until we come back. And then they left them with the marshmallows in front of them. The kids that didn't eat the marshmallows, the ones who delayed gratification, were the ones that ended up being more successful in life. All sorts of questions about the replicability of the study and if it's interesting or not, but the broadest level principle sort of makes sense. People who can delay gratification, who can, bear a burden now for a longer term greater benefit later, are going to thrive in every area of life. That is just harder to do now than ever before, because the marshmallows are so enticing. They're dancing and they're jumping around in your face, and they're like brightly colored, and they're designed exactly to your specifications of how you like your marshmallow. And so it's become this modern day superpower to sort of reject that and to fight back and to delay gratification in that way.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman had a quote that I think about quite a bit. He said, "Our species is going to select for those who can self-regulate," which is almost the opposite of what our species used to select for, which is like, if you had an addictive personality 1,000 years ago, you would be the one to go the furthest to get the food or the furthest to get the sex or whatever. But now that stuff is so abundant, it's so in your face, that it's the person that can say no to it. It's the kid that can say no to the marshmallows that can actually survive and maybe reproduce and pass their genes on. It's like the people that can self-regulate are the ones that our species is going to select for.
Yeah, assuming you live in a society that is beyond the natural scarcity of the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that is true. If you lived in a slum, in the developing world, you might actually not want to self-regulate. You might actually want to be chasing those things. But if you live in a developed world, if all of your basic needs are met, I completely agree.
Yeah, that's a great point, that these PhDs and social engineers are spending a great deal of time and energy to research. Okay, they stopped paying attention there. We need to like tweak that there because they looked away there. No, we need to brighten the colors there, boost up the saturation.
Yeah, I mean, your algorithm is feeding you only things that have been pre-vetted by a whole enormous amount of data to be eye-catching, to hold your attention for longer periods of time. If not, it's not going to be shown to you. It's not going to be served up. And so, you have to find ways to fight back against that in your natural day-to-day life. One of the most effective ways, by the way, is just turn your phone on grayscale mode for like 90% of the day. It's a very easy set of sort of feature changes. Like on the iPhone, it's under accessibility features, I think, like color filters. But like if you look at my phone, it's entirely grayscale, and you can just triple click your phone to change it back to color. It's super easy on and off. So if you do need to look at something in color, you can put it back, and then you can switch it to grayscale. What it does is it just makes your phone much less interesting. You are much less compelled to grab it and sort of scroll and just check because the colors are all blanched out from it. highly effective in reducing your screen time with just a natural, very simple intervention.
Yeah, those little hacks that make the enticing, pleasurable thing a little bit more difficult to access or a little more unappealing are very valuable. You know, sometimes I'll literally have to like throw my phone out the window into the backyard just so it's like, you know, I feel like a pathetic loser walking all the way around my house to get to the backyard to like look at something. So creating that friction can be very useful.
That's really smart. I like that one. I've tried to do that with just like, my office is on the third floor of our house, and I'll like just leave my phone on like the first floor, in the kitchen. I'm like, so I'm really gonna walk all the way down two sets of stairs to go and get this. Like you do. Like I'm the pathetic loser. It's like the walk of shame to go and grab your phone,
Yeah,
to go and do the thing. I like that.
there is a healthy amount of shame that like the longer you strut to get to your phone, like the more shame builds up.
I do feel like certain people can channel negative self-talk and shame very effectively. Certain people probably don't want to use that as a technique because they already have this like negative internal narrative. I've always found, just like my athletic background, I played baseball in college. I've always found that like I can channel a healthy amount of negative self-talk that is productive for me in making progress. But I can see how for some people it quickly crosses the Rubicon, if you will.
Yeah, I get a lot of value from negative self-talk too. I find it to be funny and useful, but I've had people say, "Hey, don't talk to yourself like that." That'll lead to bad self-esteem. But I also have an athletic background, so I relate to that a lot. All right, so I don't know if we finished social yet. I'm
I think
curious.
so.
I'm curious how we didn't really talk about romantic relationships at all, and I'm kind of curious how do you, because you talk a lot about measuring things. How do you measure if your romantic relationship is like wealthy? You're wealthy in that domain.
I think just having a level of daily appreciation for the person that you're partnered with is how you keep a romantic relationship thriving. I like to invert problems. In general, I find inversion to be a really helpful cue. So kind of flip it on its head. And one of the things that, I did in my relationship with my wife, especially when our son was born, was I read this statistic that said that 80% of married couples say that their relationship got worse in the year after their child was born. And that terrified me because this is supposed to be the happiest thing in your life. And yet 4/5 of people are saying that it makes their relationship with their partner worse. And I thought about, okay, well, what would guarantee that our relationship would get worse in the year to come? And the number one thing I could come up with was me not vocalizing how much I appreciate my wife, not talking to her about why she matters to me and how much I love her, focusing all of my attention and energy on this new being, this new child that we brought into the world, and forgetting about us, the two of us, and our connection. And so what I said was, okay, if that's where I go to die, if that's like the place where the relationship goes to suffer, the opposite of that is vocalizing appreciation every single day. If you can do that, your relationship will continue to develop. Lack of appreciation really is where relationships go to die. When you vocalize appreciation, when you bring that person along for the journey, you continue to grow together in a way that is a really powerful thing.
That's beautiful advice and 100% true. Like after this, I'm gonna need to show some appreciation for sure. So big one.
Mental wealth is about purpose. It's about growth, and it's about the ability to zoom out and wrestle with some of these bigger picture, maybe more unanswerable questions in life. I really think of mental wealth as being about the hero's journey. Like this idea of the hero who leaves the safety and confines of their home to go off on this journey, faces all sorts of trials and tribulations and struggles, and then comes back changed, new, learn, etc. An important point with all of this is that a life of mental wealth is not about this being grand or ambitious to anyone else. Your hero's journey does not have to be super impressive to other people, but it does have to be yours. It has to be your hero's journey, that you are going on it through your own design, through your own choices. What I have found is that a lot of people out there, myself included, for the first 30 years of my life, are marching down this path that is fundamentally someone else's. Someone else has handed you this path, you have accepted it without thinking about it. It's perfectly okay to take that path, but what I would say is that you need to take the time to zoom out and think about whether it's actually the path that you want. What I've often said is that the worst thing in the world is not the bad path, being on the bad path. The worst thing in the world is being on the good path that isn't yours. Because the bad path actually screams at you every single day that you need to get off of it. There's all sorts of forces telling you, like, you cannot sustain, you have to change course. But the good path that isn't yours is much more devious. There's all sorts of forces telling you to stay on it, that it's fine, that your responsibilities are met, all of these things are happening. And so what happens to most people is you don't ever question it. You don't ever zoom out. You don't think about the bigger picture of where you're trying to head, what you're trying to create, what you want your life to look like. And you end up waking up at age 80 and wondering what you just did with your life. And, this is the reason that the number one regret of the dying is that these people wish they had lived a life that was true to themselves, not the one that was expected of them. The number one regret of the dying. That is all about mental wealth. It is about taking the time to question these things, to ask yourself what you really want on your own journey, and to then act accordingly.
That's fantastic advice. You said a number of things that shot light bulbs off in my mind there. Carl Jung has a great quote. He said, if the path before you is clear, you're probably on somebody else's. I think that's a very poignant quote there. And then the hero's journey is something that I've thought about for a long time. I used to work with veterans, and I was helping them with this online course. We were creating a college course to help them kind of integrate their experiences in battle. And we used the hero's journey as a template, and so they could see where they are on the point in that journey. And it was very helpful because a hero and a villain have the same origin story. They both have this traumatic event, but they respond in opposite ways. So the hero will learn and grow from the event and come all around and, do this hero's return. Whereas the villain gets very resentful and harbors that resentment and then projects that out into the world. And so complete opposite responses to the same cue, but very valuable to know about the hero's journey and where you are in that journey.
Yeah, it's like the devil's origin story, right? Like the fallen angel. It's that exact thing that you're referring to.
100%. So, it's funny how all these things are so connected. It's hard to even separate them into five because it's hard to talk about one without talking about the others. And you interviewed many, many, many people from all walks of life. Did you notice anything in common with the people that were the happiest? Like, what did you notice about the people that were really the happiest?
I think that the people that focused on things beyond the self were very consistently the people that were the happiest. Those things that go beyond the self can be another person, could be through a relationship. In some cases, it was through a commitment to a church, some local community, giving, charity, etc., children, relationships. But across the board, what you find is that when people act in service of others in some way, shape, or form, they create the most value for others. They're receiving the most value in return, meaning in the form of happiness. It could be in the form of money. But those are the people that tend to stand out. I think that applies to business just as much as it does to life. When people build a business with the desire to make a lot of money, it very rarely works out. When people start a business with the desire to help other people, like a product that is going to help a lot of people, a service that's going to help a lot of people, solving problems for them. It doesn't have to be that it's charitable, but that it's going to solve problems for people out in the world. Those are the businesses that end up working because the desire was one of helping. It wasn't one of just trying to capture value. It was one of trying to create value out around. And the golden rule in life is to create value, then receive value. And so I think if we're trying to receive value in the form of happiness and fulfillment in our own journey, the best path across the board is to try to go and create value in the world for others.
I love that because I think when you're in service to others or you're raising kids or doing something for something beyond yourself, you're not thinking about yourself. And what psychiatrists have found is that there's no difference between thinking about yourself and being unhappy. So there's like a direct correlation between the more you think about yourself, the less happy you are. So then you like to reverse engineer things. So like the less you think about yourself, the happier you are. And I recently had a daughter, and you've got the hat dad season. And I noticed that ever since she was born, there's all these things that I used to obsess over or ruminate, little things. And I realized like I haven't thought about these things for a long time. Like I had a tinnitus in my ear, the ringing, and it was pretty annoying. But it's weird. Ever since she's been born, I haven't even had the time to even notice it. I kind of forgot about it, which is pretty amazing. Like if I really pay attention, it's still there. But I guess I've just been so focused on her that I kind of forgot about the ringing. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, kids are an extraordinary gift for this exact thing, which is this realization that for the first time in your life, you are not the center of the universe. Look, there are some people that will tell you that happens when you get married. I just disagree. I think until you have a kid, you are fundamentally still selfish. And then you have a child and it's completely different. A piece of you out in the world that you feel 10x whatever they feel, right? Like if your kid is happy, you feel it 10x. If your kid is upset or in pain, you're going to feel it 10x. It's the scariest thing in the world for that reason and the most joyous, right? It sits right on this razor's edge. But I really do feel like I have a newfound perspective that resets me around everything in life when I look at my son. Like if I'm feeling that pull of like, why am I not doing this? Should I be doing more? Should I be doing this and that? And then I see my son and I'm like, actually, this is it, right? Like, no, if my bank account had 10x as much money right now and I didn't have this, no chance. I wouldn't make that trade in a heartbeat. You could take away all my money and I still have this. Like this is what matters. This is the thing. Like this is my Rolex collection. Is my son and my wife sitting here in this moment. Like even 2 days ago, I had this moment. Like Sunday morning, I slept in, which is pretty rare, and I woke up. The sun was coming in. I like reached over and was holding my wife's hand, and my son came and crawled into bed, and he put his hand over ours, like he was holding our hand, and I was just sitting there like, this is it. This is life. Like this is my definition of success. You could take away every single thing in my life, but just leave me this, and that'll be enough.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's so rewarding. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it seems like I don't know which direction I want to go. There's like a dark direction I could take this conversation, but I'll keep it light. Like, I was thinking about, a lot of people don't want to have kids anymore, and there's that whole path we could go down. But
yeah, I mean, look, like, I think it's a mistake. I don't. For the longest time in my life, I thought I didn't want kids, so I can put myself in those shoes. Honestly, for the first 28-ish, 29 years of my life, I really thought I didn't want kids because I viewed kids as a distraction to the thing that mattered, which was making money, status, fame, living like, crazy life, traveling, fancy things, etc. And what I realized is that those desires were fundamentally driven by this deep-seated insecurity I had about who I was. That I didn't actually care about those things. I cared about other people seeing me have those things. What I was looking for was the pats on the back from other people saying like, wow, you're impressive. Look at all these things that you have, all these things that you can do. And it was a internal problem that I was seeking to solve with these external solutions. And you can't do that. It doesn't work. I cannot imagine a life, without having kids now. And I understand it's not for everyone. And I think there will be people who come to their own decisions around this and decide that kids are not right for them. And I think that is everyone's decision to make, to design your life as you see fit. I personally, with my own priorities and the things that I care about, cannot imagine a life without, being able to have this feeling, this sensation, this thing that, has brought me so much joy along this journey and so much joy to other people around me. I mean, I see my parents and my in-laws with our son, and the joy and the life that it has brought them is almost worth it just on its own. Like it is incredibly life-giving to grandparents to have this new phase of love in their lives. So I understand it. I get that everyone's on their own journey. And honestly, if you don't want kids, trying to force yourself to have kids because everyone tells you that you should probably isn't a good decision either. But I would encourage people to really think deeply about the question rather than just defaulting into what they feel like their current emotions say about it.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I would never try to convince somebody to have kids if they didn't want them, or try to force anybody against their will to, like, this is what you should do. This is a successful life. You have to do it this way. But yeah, certainly having a child is the most rewarding experience I've ever, by far. It's not even close. Yeah, and I wish that I think we're seeing a resurgence though. I do. I think there's like a spiritual renaissance coming up, and there's people that are returning to faith and tradition and family, and they're just like what your book is. It's coming at the perfect time. We've been conditioned to think that it's like all about the money, the yacht, the house. And when we get the thing that we want, we find out very quickly that that's not actually what we want. We're happy for like 2 seconds, and then we're kind of like, all right, what's next?
Yeah, it's called the arrival fallacy. It's this idea that we build up these things as being the destination, the point at which we will have arrived. And that's all we feel, is that sensation of never doing enough. It's that momentary blip of dopamine-induced euphoria. And then you reset, and you need to figure out what that next thing is. There's this beautiful quote from this old Disney movie, Cool Runnings, that I love. It's like this movie of this Jamaican bobsled team that goes to the Olympics. It's kind of a funny, feel-good movie. And near the end of the movie, the coach is talking to one of the athletes, and he says, "A gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you're never going to be enough with it." That is really the message that we all need to hear. All of these things that you think you want, these things that you're striving after, they're wonderful. They're great. I want you to go build a great business. I want you to go build these things, create jobs, go chase these grand ambitions that you have for yourself. But just recognize as you pursue those that they are wonderful. But if you're not enough without them, you're never going to be enough with them. So turn inward enough to ask yourself those questions, to not attach your enoughness to these external things that you're being told that you should want.
That's brilliant. Have you read the book, The Alchemist?
I have. Yeah, I love.
Yeah,
Paulo
I think
Coelho.
The Alchemist captures that essence so well about, without this incredible journey that the boy goes on to get treasure, he finds out at the end of this journey that the treasure is where he started. So it's kind of like this irony where he had to go on this incredible journey across the Sahara to get to the pyramids just to discover the treasure was under my feet from where I began. But if he had found the treasure right from the get-go, he wouldn't have become this extraordinary person. He wouldn't have learned all these languages and learned all these skills and become this person who is fit to hold the treasure. He would have been like the lottery winners who get all this wealth and they don't know what to do with it, and 2 years later they're bankrupt and their life is ruined. It's the what Carl Jung talked about is unearned wisdom. If we get wisdom that we didn't have to struggle for, we don't know the value of it, and it leads to mental illness or an inflated ego, or it'll ruin your life basically. So
yeah, the analogy is like, if you were to get dropped on the top of Mount Everest by like a helicopter, you would immediately pass out and die from the altitude because you actually hadn't acclimatized. You hadn't earned it on the way up. And so the climb is actually essential. It is necessary because you cannot get the value from the summit without having endured the climb on the way.
Yeah, so you just made me think, if I were to add like another column to these 5 categories of wealth, I might say that experience would be one. That's very hard to measure, but you can never quantify these struggles that you've been through, but they are very valuable. Like when you look back at all the times that you fought through adversity, that's like it builds up your soul. It feels like you have a wealth within your heart. I don't know if that made sense.
100%. I mean, I think it is, and it runs across all of these, is like all of these types of wealth are built through fundamentally delayed gratification, right? It's through doing hard things now to experience a benefit later. And I think one of the greatest mistakes in life is trying to do fast what is meant to be done slow. There are no shortcuts or hacks to build real, deep, meaningful things. And that rule applies to real relationships, to real businesses, to real health, to real mental health. All of these things in life are meant to be done slow over long periods of time, delayed gratification, doing hard things, showing up, focusing, hard conversations, meaningful pursuits. And I think that the modern struggle, is trying to chase these short-term hacks to get these things that are truly meant to be done slow.
Yeah, we've engineered a world that is so convenient, but we kind of forgot that the inconvenience is what makes us who we are in a way. Um, like I watch a lot of podcasts and experts, and I really am blown away when you listen to like an expert in archaeology, and the guy goes to the site and he's digging up the thing and he finds a bone, and he does all this forensic evidence just to learn one fact that I could go on ChatGPT and I could find out that fact in 2 seconds, and I could read about it, and it'll go in and out of my brain in 1 second. That information that I didn't have to earn, it just doesn't stick in my mind. And I think there's great value in struggling in the pursuit of knowledge, because then it sticks, it becomes wisdom.
Yeah, completely agree with that. We're on the same wavelength.
So we've kind of come full circle now. Like, one thing that really was in my mind when I was reading your book is um, having a kid takes a tremendous amount of your time. It's incredibly fulfilling, but half the time you're biting your fingernails thinking, I'm making a lot less money now. Like, I don't have the time anymore to make money, and my expenses are way higher. So how do you get these other pillars of wealth going? Does that then sacrifice money? Like, how do you keep the money train coming in?
I really think that all of this is about viewing these areas of life as these dimmer switches rather than on off. So I don't think it is possible to say, like, I'm going to optimize all of these all at once. I think you are going to have seasons of life where certain things become priorities, meaning the knob is turned up, and the other ones need to get put to more of an autopilot, which means down low. To go back to the example I used earlier, like, the C goal becomes what you're really trying to hit in those other areas. You're not probably going to be able to hit the A goal every single day. When my son was born, perfect example, I wasn't going to get the hour workout in every single day going to the gym that I previously would have liked before he was. I was going to have to settle for the 15-minute, walk with the weighted vest or whatever it was to keep that ball rolling forward. Anything above 0 compounds, but recognize that I'm in a season right now where I'm prioritizing my business stuff and my relationship with my son, the time that I have there. And I think that mentality is really helpful, because what it does is it removes the sense of pressure that you need to be perfect in all of these areas all at once, and allows you to lean into whatever the season is that you're currently in.
Hence the dad bod stereotype.
Hence the dad bod stereotype, perhaps, although we managed to avoid that, fortunately, because 15 minutes a day, if you're doing the right things, can do a whole lot of good. But I do look, I mean, I think you have less time when your kid is born. I would say my focus was 10x. Like, I made way more money after my son was born, partially because I just feel like I had the clearest why and purpose that I'd ever had in my life. Like, I need to actually provide for this thing that I've just brought into the world. And before that, everything just sort of felt like fun and games. And now it's like time to get to business. I better be really locked in when I sit down to work.
Are you a full-time author?
Full-time author, yeah, media business, and yeah, I own a handful of businesses, and I have an investment fund that I invest out of as well.
Very nice. And so this book blew up, right? It was like a bestseller. We see Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, reading it and endorsing it.
Yeah,
So,
it's done quite well, which has been really fun.
yeah, how is the publishing industry? Is it?
Publishing industry is interesting. It's very like 1900s in the way that it operates, traditional publishing. It's they're very good at certain things, and I would say still learning when it comes to like modern marketing strategies. My publisher has been fantastic. I've loved working with them. I just think if you're an author, as you're going in, you should know that it's your responsibility to market the book. And it's not something where you just like say poof and your publisher is going to market the book and it's going to be out in the world. That's really on the author.
That's great. Well, I mean, congratulations on the success of this book. I think for me, there's certain books that come into my life at the perfect time, like The Alchemist, or one that I can think of that really hit me at the right time was The 4 Hour Workweek by Tim
Yep.
Ferriss. I think I read that 15 years ago, right after graduating college. And that one just hit me. And I was like, I'm going to apply this whole thing. And it worked. And so your book has a similar effect where, I'm not in that 4 hour work week frame of mind. I'm not trying to build an empire at this moment. I'm trying to be like a family man. And I think that this book really brought me back down to earth.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I'm thrilled and look forward to spending time together in person soon.
Yeah. So this has been a great conversation. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Sahil Bloom on any of the platforms. You can find my newsletter on my website, sahilbloom.com. And then the book, The 5 Types of Wealth, is available on Amazon or anywhere books are sold.
That's great. Here it is, The 5 Types of Wealth. And my copy is really chewed up and it looks like I've been reading this for a decade, but I've only had it for a few weeks. The funny thing is every time I tried to read it, my daughter would come over and like try to bite it. And like the irony was I was
It's
like,
a meta theme. It's good.
here I am trying to figure out how to like enjoy these little moments with my kid. And
Yes.
I'm like kind of ignoring her reading this book. But all right, man, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you.
Likewise. Thanks so much.